Oh, hello, yes. Can I get Carol trying to overcome her past as an appetizer? I will also get Negan's existential crisis for dessert. And then for the main entree, I think I'm going to get our characters trying to survive constant attacks from the Whisperers. And I see that comes with relationship drama. Could I get it without the relationship drama? No. Are you sure? Damn. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Anderson here, and this is The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 3, Ghosts. So ultimately, the best thing about this episode is Carol and her whole story. The fact that she's seeing ghosts because she's sleep deprived, so she's hallucinating a bit. The dilemma that she's going through where she wants to go after Alpha, but in doing so, it's kind of making things more difficult for the rest of the main characters because she's antagonizing the Whisperers. I still think it's stupid that she didn't just kill Alpha the end of last episode, but they are discussing this whole herd that Alpha and the Whisperers have at their command, the 10,000 or something like that. So I guess the idea is even if you kill Alpha, those who are loyal to her, even if the Whisperers disband, those who are loyal will send the herd after them as sort of a revenge mission. So maybe that's the thought process. They don't feel like they can go after them because of that. I don't know, that just sounds like a weak reasoning to me. But either way, like I said, Carol in this episode, getting to see what she's going through, seeing the hurt that she's feeling because of what happened in the past, how it's driving her and pushing her back to what she doesn't want to become. All that is very interesting. And I think the scene where she's tied up in the rope, cuts herself down, and then takes out that whole group of walkers, including one of them being a Whisperer, it was very badass, and it's very reminiscent of the Carol that we've seen for most of this show. However, I will say on that, it's a little weird that Michonne still doesn't believe her. Did she not see the rope that she was dangling from up in the ceiling? The other part of this that I thought was somewhat interesting, just not as interesting as Carol's stuff, is we do see Aaron and Negan go out on, I don't remember what now, because I'll be honest, I kind of spaced out for a bit, but they're going on some sort of mission, and it was very interesting to see Aaron and Negan have a little bit of a conversation. I don't think it's the end of it, but Aaron basically calls him out for what he did in the past, so even though Negan does seem like he's trying to help out, to maybe just to keep himself alive, Aaron still doesn't trust him because of that. So there is this rift there between the two of them, this mistrust that I'm curious to see where it's going to go next. It's felt more like the starting line, and we don't really know where it's going to end up, whether Aaron's going to fully trust him, whether Negan is going to betray him at some point because that's just who he is. There's a lot of stuff that they could do with this that I'm kind of excited to see what they choose to do. But those are the two major things to talk about. The other two stories that just kind of pop in here or there. First of all, the stuff with Siddiq and I think his name is Dante, the doctor. We're seeing that Siddiq is still dealing with the trauma of what he witnessed at the end of last season, which I guess there's potential there for a story, but honestly, they're not really doing much with it. And this Dante guy, honestly, I just don't find him that interesting. He's one of those cocky assholes that they gave some depth to, so I guess we're supposed to feel bad for him, but he's shown nothing but being a cocky asshole so far. So why should I care about him? Also, is this season the first time that we've seen him? Because he's not a character that comes to mind at all from previous seasons, so I don't know if I've just forgotten about him, but I'm just not a fan of him, so having them connect at the end with Dante telling him his story, I just didn't get that invested because I don't like him as a character. And Siddiq as well, I'm still not fully on board with him either, so just not a very interesting story. But it's not as bad as the final thing, which is Rosita and Eugene. They're out there killing some walkers, and then just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, later in the episode, they're at the table, and Rosita just snaps at Eugene because he said he was trying to protect her, and she's like, we're never going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Eugene just crashes out. He's like, oh, that was the only reason I'm going to be your friend. What kind of friend am I? If that's the only reason I'm going to be your friend is because I wanted to get with you. What the fuck? I mean, what is this? Don't get me wrong, sometimes the character interactions, that's what's made the show great in the past. This is some high school drama bullshit. Like, Rosita's already been dealing with a lot of the weird relationship stuff between her and Father Gabriel, her and Siddiq, them having a kid. And I know Eugene has kind of been on the periphery because he wants to be there for her, he wants to be there for the kid. But just all of a sudden throw this random story in where he has a moment of realization that that's the only reason he was friends with her. And her drunken outburst, well, drunken because she's tired drunk, like that all of a sudden wakes him up and goes, oh, she's never going to get with me. Well, God, that was the only reason I was friends with her. Man, I'm a terrible friend. That's it. That's the story. Again, what is this? This is not the Walking Dead type of story. This is Nick Jr. Okay, maybe not Nick Jr., but this is Nickelodeon. It's like Ned's Declassified Drake and Josh, iCarly type of bullshit. Why is it on The Walking Dead? And yes, I know it's ironic since Rosita was on Ned's Declassified, but still, I can't believe that this is the angle they decided to take here. It's just very bizarre. But anyway, those are all my thoughts on this episode, so on to the next one. I'll see you there. And finally, episode 4, Silence the Whisperers. So it's okay, it's definitely more of a building episode where we see some characters making some realizations, the story's progressing a little bit. Probably the biggest progression that we see is with Lydia and Negan, of course. I gotta say, their story is probably the most interesting one. Seeing Negan try to be a better person, but then ultimately, while trying to be a better person, he accidentally kills somebody trying to protect Lydia. I think that's just about right for his character, and of course the reaction is probably justified based on who he was. Even though we, the audience, know what happened, we know he was just trying to protect her, and we know he seems like he's trying to change. It makes sense why everybody would be so mistrusting of him because of who he was before. And I do feel like that's something that should have been maybe hammered home with Lydia a little bit more. Like Daryl just says, you didn't know who he was. I feel like he could have told her. He could have gone into more detail, like this is who he used to be, this is all the stuff he did, he killed friends, loved ones, but he just leaves it at that. So I feel like that could have been expanded upon, so that way she doesn't feel like they're just targeting him for no reason. But the other thing on this that I will say is a little weird and I don't think is fully explained why, is the conversation with Michonne and Daryl. Michonne realizes, because they were talking about it earlier in the episode, the reason why Alpha didn't send the Horde after them is because they still have Lydia, which makes sense because we've seen Alpha does not want to kill Lydia, even though it's exactly what she believes in. She thinks that they should just leave everything behind. So that is probably what's going on, and yet Michonne tells Daryl to keep it under wraps. I think that's a weird decision because we see there's a lot of animosity directed at her. She doesn't feel welcome there because so many people hate what her mother did. They blame her for it. So I'm not saying tell her that, because then of course she'll feel like, oh, well then I should just leave because you're only going to keep me around because it keeps you safe. But at least talk to some of the people that do treat her with such animosity. Be like, look, I don't care if you blame her. I don't care if you trust her. This helps us. Having her here, it keeps them from sending this all-out massive horde at us to destroy our communities because Alpha doesn't want her dead. I feel like if you just explain that to these assholes, maybe they leave her alone. Maybe we don't have to deal with her feeling left out. Maybe they would actually pretend, even if they don't necessarily like her, but pretend to be friends with her to make her feel more welcome there. And sure, maybe she would wonder why they suddenly changed their tune, but it makes more sense than just keeping that information to yourself while everybody continues to pile on Lydia to the point where now some people are even blaming her, and she took the blame for it for some reason, for letting Negan out. So yeah, it just seems like a weird move from Michonne and Daryl. But I feel like any of the bad decisions that are made right now, they're just kind of explaining it away with, well, they're not sleeping because the attacks are so consistent that they're having to stay awake at all hours of the day. I can understand that to a point, but if that's really going to be your reasoning for every single moment whenever a character makes a bad decision, I feel like you're more so leaning on it as a crutch as a writer than you're actually utilizing it as part of the story. But of course, the other part of this episode is what's happening at Hilltop, the wall collapsing, the tree collapsing, all of this awful stuff. And of course, they think the Whisperers are responsible for it. And there's a good chance that they are. They are just trying to do everything they can to keep them awake, to make sure that they're going to make some bad decisions. So I do kind of wonder how they're going to manage to counteract that. Because that's not something that you can just, okay, well, maybe we take shifts or something so people are still able to sleep, because, I mean, the herds are kind of different in numbers, so sometimes maybe you need everybody fighting, sometimes you need just a little group. So it is a clever plan, and I do think that it does show the strength of the Whisperers and how effective they could still be, even though everybody knows who they are and knows to look out for them whenever you're out in the middle of the woods and a herd of walkers comes to you. Because I was saying before, I wasn't sure how they were going to be as effective since that element of surprise was now gone. So it's nice to see that they still have other means of tactics that they can still fight effectively against our main characters. Yeah, there are a couple of side stories involved in this. Luke is going with Michonne to Oceanside because that one girl he was talking to. We see, I think it's Magna and Yumiko, if I'm not mistaken. We see a moment where Magna wants to fight and Yumiko makes the decision no, and then they have like an argument about that. I don't exactly know why. Eugene's staying at Hilltop because of the stuff with Rosita. We see Ezekiel at one point, looks like he's about to go out and just take himself out because the pressure is getting too hard and he's lost the mask of being a king. So I get it. I get the pressure, but it still feels like this sort of came out of nowhere. You know, we had one moment, I think a couple episodes ago, or maybe it was last episode, where Jerry was asking him if he needed to take a break because he was breathing heavy. But this whole feeling of him thinking he has no reason to live anymore, that to me seems sudden, in my opinion. But his whole conversation with Michonne in the woods, it was fine. It's just weird that they proceeded it with him kissing her. That felt like an odd decision. But again, they're tired, so bad decisions all around, I guess. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this episode. All in all, it's a fine episode. I feel like there's some gaps in the writing, and the overall intrigue of this season so far hasn't really gripped me. There are a couple stories that have. Like, I want to see more about Negan, which he's just an interesting character in general, so that's not really that surprising. But seeing what Carol's going through as well, I find that intriguing. And the Whisperer's plan to essentially keep them up for days at a time, it's a good plan, and I am interested to see how the characters are going to fight back, but past that, I don't really see how they can be effective other than we're just going to send our 10,000 walker horde after you. Like, that is basically what they have. Is not something we haven't seen them take on before. We saw them take on a giant horde. What was that, season 7, I think? So it just feels like something we've done before. Just this time, instead of there being a random horde that's coming after them, it's something that's being sent at them. But that'll do it for all of my thoughts. So with all that being said, cue the outro. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that review. I hope you enjoyed it. First and foremost, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I love having discussions with people, so whatever your thoughts were, whether you agree or disagree with me, please leave them down below. Obviously, no spoilers. Also, if you did find yourself enjoying this review and you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I also have a gaming channel as well as a channel where I talk about soccer, so if you want to give those a follow as well, that would be much appreciated. And lastly, if you want to help me improve upon the quality of these channels, I do have a Patreon. All of this is in the description below. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.